All right, so next thing we're going to do is get ready for some of our proofs. And remember that these are very similar to what we've done before. If you want to make these into type of note cards, flashcards, we need to be able to look at this given information and to figure out what it's telling us and the reason why. This will just be a small kind of like snapshot of what a very much larger proof will be. And so we need to be able to pick out these small parts and be able to notice what's going on in these small parts to be able to do some of our larger proofs. Okay, so if we look at our first piece of given information there, and then our second column says we want to use the figure and the given to determine what else is true, and then our third column is to provide a reason why. So looking at our given information there, we can see that angle 3 and angle 4 are vertical angles. Okay. Our reason for that would just be a definition of a vertical angle. The other thing that we can say after we know that they are vertical angles is that we know that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. And the reason we know that is that vertical angles imply that they are congruent. Okay. So let's look at the second one. The second one, we are given that T is the midpoint of US. And so what is true from the given information? Well, if T is the midpoint, then what we should know is that this segment, UT, is congruent to this segment, ST. And the reason why that is that's a definition of what a midpoint is. Now, what else is true in that figure? If we look at this, this is going to have to be congruent to this. So GT is congruent to GT, and the reason why that is that's the reflexive property. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 3. Number 3, we are given that segment GT bisects segment US. And so we need to know what is true from the given information. So if we are told that GT is a bisector, then what must be true is that T is the midpoint of segment US. And the reason why that is that is the definition of a segment bisector. So we want to, as we're looking at number 2 and number 3, we want to see the difference between, in number 2, when we are given the midpoint, what information that we can draw out of the problem, and in number 3, if we're given that we have a bisector, what information we can draw out of the problem. Okay. From that, then we could then also say that segment UT is going to be congruent to segment ST, and that would be a definition of a midpoint. Now, looking to see what else is true, when we look at this, we can see that this triangle and this triangle share that same side, and so therefore that GT is going to be congruent to GT, and that once again is the reflexive property. All right, so looking at number 4. Number 4, we have segment GT bisects the angle UGS. What is true from the given information? And so what we're going to look at is that if we're looking at this now is being that it's an angle bisector, then we need to say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And the reason why that is that is the definition of an angle bisector. What else can we look at in the figure? So once again, we see this. We're going to be always able to do that with this type of figure. We don't want to forget about that. So segment GT is congruent to segment GT. And the reason why that is the reflexive property. All right, let me move this up here. Looking at number 5, we are told that segment GT is perpendicular to segment US. And so what is true from this given information? And so if it's perpendicular, what we know is that angle 3 and angle 4 are right angles. And that is the definition of perpendicular. We can go one step further with that from that given information and be able to say that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. And that is because we know that all right angles are congruent. Here we go with the what else do we know about this figure? And we could see once again the two smaller triangles are sharing that side. And so therefore we can say that segment GT is congruent to segment GT, and that is the reflexive property. All right, the last one on this page, number 6. Move it up here a little bit, make it bigger. We are told that we have segment GU and it is parallel to segment ST. So what is true about the given information? And so if we look at that, one thing that we can say is that the angle 3 is congruent to angle 2, and that would be because parallel lines imply that alternate interior angles are congruent. What else is true from that figure? Look at what we have here being shared, this side, and so we're going to be able to say that segment SU is congruent to segment SU, and that is the reflexive property.